On this episode of Storm Stories, terrifying mudslides, how one crushes an entire community.
There was a wall of mud coming that was taller than my house. And then it hit.
Most of the area was like a soupy, thick mud with all kinds of debris. You didn't walk through it, you swam through it.
It was like a nuclear bomb went off.
People were found in vehicles, crushed in homes, found under 15 or 20 feet of dirt and mud.
And later,
oh my God!
a twister flattens entire neighborhoods.
I look down the street and a it's in our backyard. I mean, it's this just big, monstrous, black, blowing cloud.
The most terrifying part was I didn't know if our parents were alive.
That is a violent tornado that will level anything in its path. And it did.
Northwestern Washington.
Oso and Darrington are on the west slope of the Cascade Range in Washington, about 50 miles or so north of Seattle.
The natural surroundings is a beautiful Pacific Northwest valley, heavily mountainous terrain, Douglas fir forests that cover all the hills.
Folks just kind of go about their business and don't really pay attention to anything that's going on in the fast-paced world around them.
Robin Youngblood, a Native American church leader, lives just north of Highway 530 in the Steelhead Drive community of 60 people. On her property is a river where salmon come to spawn.
I have a small church, so the things that I teach are from our culture, the cycles of life, through the salmon.
Late winter 2014.
February was abnormally wet. We receive a lot of moisture. And the reason being is because we're in a valley, but we're socked in on three sides by very tall mountains. We actually received near record amounts of rainfall in the first couple weeks of March.
Saturday, March 22nd, 10:36.
Half of the roof off. I have no earthly idea how I found my way out. And that has to be by the grace of God. Yeah. There was nothing stable around me. I somehow got on either the washing machine or the dryer, and we started yelling for help.
What Robin and other residents don't know is that a large portion of the mountainside above their community has just collapsed, causing a massive mudslide.
This was a large enough landslide that it was recorded by seismographs. About a 600-foot stack of sediments failed, mobilized, ran out across the valley bottom at speeds up to 60 miles an hour or so.
To try and put that in perspective, check out these much smaller mudslides from around the world.
Oh my God!
Darrington Fire Chief Dennis Fenstermaker arrives at the scene of the mudslide at 11 a.m.
You could tell it was 15 or 20 feet deep in places, and everything was gone that would normally be there. The trees, the terrain itself was covered with debris from homes, and it almost looked like the pictures you see from a tornado. I could not see the highway for probably about a mile, and the highway was gone, covered with debris. My thought was that there was most likely going to be many injured, if not killed people.
Also at 11 a.m., off-duty police officer Dane Bruner gets a panic phone call from his mother.
She goes, "What's going on with the highway?" And I said, "What do you mean about the highway?" She goes, "Why, we heard there was a mudslide."
Dane's mother is worried about his younger sister, Summer. Summer works with horses for a living and was on her way that morning to a horseshoeing appointment.
She goes, "Is Summer there?" And I said, what? And she goes, Summer left the house at about 10:30, and she's not answering her phone, and I can't get a hold of her.
Dane hangs up the phone, takes his sons, 16-year-old Riley and 14-year-old Zach, and heads out to the highway to see what's going on. As the Bruners make their way toward the area, Chief Fenstermaker is struggling to somehow comprehend a disaster of truly epic proportions.
It was a massive amount of dirt that fell off the hill, maybe 3/4 of a mile across, and a hillside that was 400 or 500 feet high. It was huge. It went across the river. So it picked up a lot of liquid when it crossed the river. Most of the area was like a soupy, just thick mud with all kinds of debris all mixed together. And you didn't walk through it, you swam through it. The initial things that I was in charge of was getting the necessary resources to the area and try to do everything that we could to save the lives that were savable at that moment. And we had no idea what that number was.
Upon arriving at the mudslide, Dane Bruner takes this cell phone video.
What you're looking at is the area where Steelhead Drive used to be. Trees, dirt, rocks, mud all over. See, it's this devastation. It's like a nuclear bomb went off. Everything was one color. Anything that was standing, it was a landmark, was flattened. So my mom immediately calls me and says Summer had scheduled a horseshoeing job to happen about 7 miles past the slide area. I was like, you were overreacting. I started getting annoyed with her, and I go, Mom, what do you want me to do? And she goes, go find your sister. I'd seen dead bodies throughout my career. I've seen mutilated bodies throughout my career, but I had no idea that that's what I was going to see, and even 100-fold worse than what I'd ever seen.
Oso Washington, March 22nd, 2014.
You couldn't see much of anything except the mud. It spread so far, a mile. If you think of us as being in the center of it, that's a half a mile either way. Mud, logs, pieces of houses.
A massive mudslide has just buried the Steelhead Drive community where Robin Youngblood lives.
My house was a mobile home. I'm really grateful for that. The stick houses imploded. My house was on wheels. It moved. The roof came off, but the four walls actually held together. I was so shocked at seeing it. I said, was that mountain volcanic? Because this looks like Mount St. Helens after it blew.
Robin and a friend struggle to pull themselves onto the only stable items nearby, the washing machine and refrigerator.
We started yelling for help.
Fire Chief Dennis Fenstermaker receives an initial estimate that as many as 100 people could be buried in the mud.
We had people that were trapped in buildings, and you're digging through a house that might be completely collapsed. The walls are flattened, the roof is gone, and it's full of mud. So you're maybe have an indication that there's somebody still in the house. So you're trying to remove the mud and expose the building structure and then extricate them out of the structure. It was not going to be easy. So one of the first things we did is I basically asked for every helicopter in Western Washington.
We could have been in the mud and water until we perished from hypothermia.
This video captures the moment when Robin and her friend Yeti are rescued.
They finally decided to come low enough to throw a ladder down and came down and got us. Took Yeti first.
I have her. Give me some slack.
And then came back for me.
High up the head. Give me some slack.
Before being flown to safety, Robin asked the first responders if they can retrieve one prized possession from her ruined home, a Native American painting.
I asked him if he could take the picture, and he said, I can't get it this trip. And I was ready to accept that, but he saw how much it meant to me. He climbed down the ladder again to get that picture and bring it up.
As Robin and her friend Yeti are airlifted away from the disaster site with minor injuries, Dane Bruner, an off-duty police officer, and his two sons are just entering it.
You get to be callous to those kinds of things. So if there's a disaster, you just put your hat on and you handle it.
It's possible that Dane's sister, Summer, may have been driving through the area when the mudslide occurred.
We passed over 4 dead bodies in the very first 800 feet. We could hear noises. There was screaming. There was animal noises. It took us 2.5 hours to walk a half a mile. The farther in you got, the worse it was. You think you'd be on something solid, and next step you'd go and you'd be up to mud in your chest. So then you're turning around, you're pulling your son out, and they were right next to me and said, we're gonna find Aunt Summer, we're gonna find her, we're gonna bring her home.
Dane shoots this video of the disaster site.
We're standing on top of a hillside that's covered in at least 10, 12 feet of mud. Somewhere out there is my sister.
On the edge of the mudslide, Robin Youngblood and her friend are dropped off at a medical checkpoint. As they wait for an ambulance, they're joined by a 5-year-old boy who's been separated from his family.
He was just shaking and freezing, and I stripped him immediately and put him in warm blankets and sat him on my lap. He was scared to death. He wanted to know where his daddy and his brothers and sisters were. I had no answers for him. I told him, look, we're just gonna sing together, okay? And I started singing Itsy Bitsy Spider and a bunch of children's songs, yeah? And I taught him an Indian children's song that's really easy. I'm a grandmother. That's what a grandmother does.
A few hours later at the hospital, Robin learns the boy's father and 2 siblings died in the mudslide. At the site of the disaster, Dane and his sons are still digging through the mud for any sign of his sister Summer's car.
I knew she was on the highway, driving. Now I knew the force of the slide was coming from the north to the south, so I knew she had to be on the south side of the road. So we'd keep going, find an area that looked like there was a vehicle, dig by hand, and then come up. It was just an empty vehicle. I kept yelling Summer's name. I was determined to find her.
Today's operation is going to involve aircraft. It's going to involve search and rescue people.
First responders arrive in Oso, Washington in March 2014 after a horrifying mudslide.
It's about a mile long, probably 1,000 feet wide, probably an estimate of 15 million cubic yards of material. It's massive.
People were found in almost every kind of situation you can think of, in vehicles, crushed in homes, found under 15 or 20 feet of mud.
Dane Bruner and his 2 sons are still searching for his sister Summer, who they believe was driving through the area when the mudslide hit.
The deepest spot throughout the entire time I was out there searching was about 30 feet deep. There were mounds of dirt that were over 80 feet tall, but I was there to find Summer. We weren't gonna let that get in our way.
5 days after the mudslide, on March 27th, Dane gets a phone call from a search volunteer.
She goes, I think we found Summer's car. And I said, what? And she goes, we found Summer's car. And I said, okay, I'm headed that way. So I hung up. And Riley looks at me, and I grabbed Riley's arm. I said, are you ready for this? And he goes, Dad, I've been ready for 5 days. Let's go get her. Riley and I got over there. We started digging. The whole roof of her car was blown off, and so we're digging down the mud. Trunk lid's gone, hood's gone, but she was in it. Still seat belted in, hands on the steering wheel, foot was on the gas pedal. As soon as I got down to where her head and neck were exposed, I called my mom and said we found her. You could hear the phone drop, and she was just screaming. My dad picks it up, and then my grandma was there too, and so they got her back on. And I said, she's in one piece. She's not alive, but she's in one piece, and you will get to hold her. Because that's all she wanted. She goes, I just want to hold her one more time. I held her hand, rubbed her cheeks, and said my goodbyes. I wanted her out alive, but I got my sister out of this mud. She was the hardest working woman I've ever known. And she was just an amazing sister and even more an amazing friend.
Summer is one of 43 people killed in the mudslide. Even after his sister is found, Dane doesn't stop searching until the last victim is recovered.
I wanted everybody to come home. People were asking me, why are you still out here? I said, this is what Summer would want. She would expect it.
As the communities of Oso and Darrington mourn, they also want answers. How did the mudslide happen?
What was this hill made out of? Why did it fall apart so badly? Why did it fall apart so fast? Why did it run across the valley and wipe out the community that was there?
Geologist David Montgomery is part of a research team brought in to determine the cause of the slide.
This was one of the most difficult emotionally projects that I've ever worked on. A lot of people died here, and we were looking at it not all that long afterwards. Just walking around the lower part of the site was gut-wrenching.
David and his team find that several factors led to the disaster.
This landslide happened right after a major period of rainfall, almost the wettest March on record. So lots of rain played right into it, but you had a geologically susceptible site. You have whole mountainsides that are made of loose sediments, and we have loose sediments exposed on steep slopes. That's a recipe for landslides.
Robin Youngblood relocates to a new house 200 miles east of Oso, where she keeps a vivid reminder of the mudslide.
I couldn't take the mud off because my daughter and son-in-law and my son all said that tells the story of the mudslide. So even today, it hangs in my living room with the mud on it.
A memorial site now stands at the base of the mountain. It honors the 43 lives that were lost. Just behind it, a colossal scar in the landscape where once a community lived.
You drive by it every single day. You'll never forget it. You'll think about it every day. You understand that some people's lives will never be the same.
I have a hole in my life that'll never be filled. I miss my sister, and I think of her every day. Scar's there. The hillside's still gone. My sister's still gone. It'll never go away.